The server rack sang like a hive, fans whining, blue LEDs blinking Morse into my eyelids. I smelled hot dust and coffee burned to tar. My cursor chased a routine diagnostics check across the carrier's backbone when the log hiccuped and a string of characters flashed, there and gone like a shark's fin. Not Navy standard. Too clean, too careful. A ghost wearing our uniform. I backspaced the buffer, caught it on the rebound. The fragment nested inside emergency comms like a tick under skin, self-erasing, checksum mimicked, sleeping until a trigger word. Payload flag read one thing: kill signal. One packet and a strike group would go quiet. Blind and deaf, on purpose. I could have logged it green and moved on. Senior Chief Harlan's voice still lived in my head. Don't overthink it, Warren. Your background bandwidth. The Truman's air tasted like Freon and floor wax. My mouth tasted like battery. I printed the string anyway, hands slick, folded the paper into my pocket until it creased like a threat note I'd written to myself. Then I did the thing you're not supposed to do when you're the most overlooked tech in the Navy. I walked out. The briefing room felt refrigerated for admirals, not humans. Flags, mahogany, the stale aftershave of rank. A 4-star slid a pointer across a Pacific map. Captains lined the wall like chess pieces. I hovered at the hatch, heart a misfiring metronome, and watched my window slam shut. 5, 4. I stepped forward. Sir, I said, voice too small for the carpet. Then again, louder, like I owed the ocean an apology. Sir, you need to see this. Chairs stopped breathing. Harlan's head snapped around, glare like a safety off. My division chief's pen paused mid-scratch. The admiral, Ross, did not blink. Approach, he said. I crossed the room feeling every invisible year of being no one. Paper shook in my hand. Code winked up from ink like it knew it owned me. I slid the sheet onto the table. Hidden routine in fleet emergency protocols, I said. Self-masking. Triggerable shutdown. The room changed temperature. Ross's face went still in a way that meant everything was moving. He tapped the printout once with a thumbnail, eyes narrowing at the signature string. D9. Behind me, Harlan's whisper knifed my ear. Warren, log it green. Walk away. I didn't. The carrier's steel felt suddenly very alive under my boots. In my pocket, my father's old coin pressed cool against my palm like a vote I hadn't asked for but needed. The admiral lifted his chin a degree, permission and test in one motion. Lock the doors, he said. The click of the bolts sounded like a horizon turning. My future hung there, between the hum of servers and the quiet of men who finally understood what the overlooked girl had just hauled into the light. I didn't join to be a hero. I joined because rent is due even when dreams aren't. Norfolk smelled like diesel and bay wind the week I signed. The recruiter's office tasted like stale mints and printer heat. My mother cried in the car, quiet, eyes straight ahead, then pressed a Tupperware of brownies into my hands like sugar could armor a kid. Dad would have laughed, the good kind. He'd been a machinist's mate in Vietnam, hands nicked, nails half-mooned with grease, stories folded small to fit inside silence. He used to flip a worn coin across his knuckles while he fixed things. You listen to the machine, he'd say. It tells you what hurts, just not in English. He died on a Tuesday that smelled like hospital bleach and rain. I kept the coin. It kept me. On the Truman, I learned how to become furniture. Stand where you're needed, talk when spoken to, be the hum under someone else's speech. I liked it. A job with edges, cables that clicked home, servers that breathed predictable heat. I learned the sound of honest error versus sabotage. One is clumsy, one is careful. Senior Chief Harlan preferred clumsy. We're sailors, Warren, not artists, he'd say, sliding a chewed pen behind his ear. Log it green. He called me girl when he was lazy, and Warren when he wanted my work without my name. My rack smelled like detergent and metal. My nights tasted like energy drink and dry noodles. I hung Dad's coin on a chain by my pillow and tapped it when the ship rolled, the small weight saying what nobody else did. I see you. Mom texted articles at odd hours. Storms, collisions, the kind of tragedies that chew mothers. "You're safe?" she'd ask without punctuation, fear trying to be efficient. I'd send her photos of dumb things, sunrise over an angry sea, a seagull swaggering on the flight deck, my boot next to a painted "no step." I didn't tell her about Harlan's office, which always smelled faintly of sour coffee and old bravado. He believed in rank the way kids believe in superheroes, as permission. The week before the code, I noticed small wrongnesses, checksum anomalies that reconciled too perfectly, timestamps that were someone else's watch. A routine scan would burp, then sit up straight, eyes forward. The logging demon dropped a line, then filled it in with immaculate handwriting. I filed 3 tickets. Harlan closed them with the same comment: user error. The caps felt personal. A sticky note showed up on my keyboard one night. "Keep digging and you'll dig your own transfer." The handwriting tried to be blocky mail and landed on childish. I slid it into my pocket beside a printout of one of the weird fragments. Threat note, evidence, or a dare. Either way, it warmed against Dad's coin like paper learning to be brave. When I couldn't shake the feeling, I did the thing you do when you grew up with a machinist. I listened without touching. I sat cross-legged on the comms room deck, back against a humming rack, and watched logs scroll until my eyes sanded over. The ship smelled like recirculated AC and salt trying to get in. Around 0230, a signature blinked past. D9. Not Navy, not vendor. Too neat to be accident. The fragment reached into emergency protocols, patted them on the head, and tucked in a sleeper with a poisoned lullaby. I took it to Harlan like a kid brings in a bird from the yard. He didn't look up. "We have a VIP brief tomorrow," he said, shuffling papers that smelled like someone else's problem. "Don't bring me ghosts." "It's not a ghost," I said. "It's a glove someone left on our throat." He finally looked. His pupils flattened. "Log it green." "That's not—" "Warren." Just my name, but a warning. "You like this ship? Keep your head down. People who make storms get assigned to weather." I left with the air tasting metallic and my hands itching to move. In the passageway, the Truman's bulkheads reflected my face back at me in dented steel. Twice, 3 times, like the ship was trying to multiply me until I mattered. I palmed the coin. It clicked against my ring like a tiny salute. That night, I reran diagnostics with a shadow process I shouldn't have had on a ship I had promised to protect. The code surface felt like clean glass. I breathed on it. A pattern bloomed. Someone with high-level access had threaded a self-destruct through contingency comms, dormant unless a specific emergency phrase hit the net. If triggered, a strike group would go silent simultaneously. Ships don't fear many things. Silence is one of them. I printed the proof. Folded it once, twice, until the paper developed a spine. I slid the threat note and the fragment together in my pocket, layered with Dad's coin, past and present making a small, noisy coalition. In the morning, the Truman woke to the smell of floor wax and briefing coffee. Harlan smirked down the passageway like he'd already written my day. "Eyes front, Warren. VIPs are allergic to junior ranks with opinions." I tucked the paper deeper into my pocket. I could feel the coin through it. Cool, round, insistently ordinary. I didn't feel brave. I felt like a bolt at the bottom of a machine, deciding whether to shear or hold. At the hatch to the admiral's briefing, the petty officer on watch gave me that half-sympathy look people reserve for small dogs and lance corporals. "You don't belong in there," he said, polite, almost kind. "I know," I said, and stepped in anyway. The briefing room AC had that overconfident chill that makes your teeth think about chattering. Coffee steamed in silver urns. A laminated Pacific sat under a laser pointer like a patient about to be cut. I hovered by the hatch with my threat note and printout folded twice around Dad's coin. Paper warmed soft against the metal. Senior officers murmured in that low, carpet-approved register. I could smell floor wax and aftershave and the faint ozone of projectors. "Next slide," the flag aide said. The map blinked. Comms redundancy glowed in confident blue. I felt the ship under my boots, steel humming, cables breathing. And I saw again the fragment I'd trapped at 0230. A neat little parasite asleep inside the redundancy they were bragging about. I stepped in. The petty officer at the door started to block. I shook my head once. "Lieutenant Warren?" he tried, getting my rank wrong on purpose. "You're not on the list." "Neither is the code that kills your list," I said, voice steadier than my knees. At the far end, Admiral Ross turned a degree, jaw cut from some older Navy, eyes that catalogued and never fidgeted. Senior Chief Harlan slid along the wall like a storm front, glare already tightening. "Warren," he hissed, that quiet that means career. "Out." I walked to the table anyway. The carpet tried to swallow my footsteps. The room tried to swallow me. I set the folded paper in the pool of projector light so the code looked like a confession delivered in daylight. "Sir," I said to Ross, "you need to see this." He didn't take it right away. He watched my hands. He watched Harlan watching me. Then he lifted the page by one edge, like a cautious man picking up a live wire. The characters stared back. Checksum mimic, sleeper call, D9 threaded like a signature only its owner would admire. His face did not move, which is how you know something just did. "Door," he said. The bolts slid home. That stainless click carried through my ribs. Harlan's smile turned into Plan B. "Admiral, with respect, this junior is overreading a checksum anomaly. We've logged it green." "Who is we?" Ross asked, still not blinking. "Comms," Harlan said. "My shop." "Then your shop will explain," Ross said, and handed the printout to Commander Briggs. Cyber investigator, trim hair, eyes like a scan tool. Briggs stepped under the projector's spill, his shadow cutting code in half. He sniffed once, like a mechanic catching coolant. "Not Navy," he said. "Not vendor. Intentional obfuscation. Self-delete routine on detection." Harlan coughed laughter into his fist. "Or a nervous tech fat-fingered a test and printed it for attention." "Show me the nervous tech," Ross said without looking up. He had already found me again. "Emma Warren," I said. My voice came out with a burr of late-night coffee and recirculated air. "Junior IT. Node 5. Night Watch." "What did you see first?" Briggs asked. "Timestamps wearing the wrong watch," I said. "Checksums that reconcile too perfectly. A routine that burped and then sat up straight. At 0230, a D9 tag reached into ECOM override and tucked in a sleeper keyed to a phrase that shouldn't live on Navy nets." "Phrase?" Ross asked. "Not saying it out loud while we're hot," I said. That got me the smallest twitch at his mouth. Approval without encouragement. He gestured to the console at the side wall. "Bring it up. Air gap the machine." Harlan moved faster than he looked like he could. "Admiral." "Stand down, Senior Chief," Ross said, and the rank in his voice walked Harlan back 3 invisible steps. Briggs slid into the chair, fingers already dancing. I stood at his shoulder, the coin printing a round into my palm, the threat note's edge tickling my wrist like paper trying to be brave. The console fan spooled, a new hive joining the room's larger hum. Briggs partitioned a drive, killed radio, lit the sandbox. "Where?" he asked. "Under ecom contingency," I said. "Nested behind a dummy routine called Safe Path Lexigahertz." He found it. Everyone felt the moment, even if only 3 of us knew what the code meant. The string glowed in monochrome like a vein under skin. He followed the call. The hook opened like a small, polite mouth. The payload unfurled, graceful, efficient, lethal. "Trigger phrase maps to fleet-wide," Briggs said, voice so flat it was almost kind. "Cascade shutoff. It would look like a power blip. It would be all of them." "Source?" Ross asked. "Scrubbed and salted," Briggs said, "but the handle D9 isn't shy." Ross handed the paper back to me, not to Harlan. "Why come here?" he asked. "Chain wasn't safe," I said. "Sir." Harlan's whisper reached only me. "You just ended yourself." Mini-turn. The admiral's hand flattened, a small radar sweep that quieted the room to underhum. He looked at Harlan, then at the 2 captains near the door. "Phones on the table. This room is now a skiff." Metal clinked. Reluctant rectangles thumped wood. The projector cycled to a blue screen as Briggs yanked its network. The air tasted different when the radios died, thicker, like rain that had decided not to fall. Ross turned to me again, voice dialed down until it felt like we were standing on a catwalk above the ocean. "Warren, what do you need to keep this ship safe in the next 10 minutes?" "Lock access to ecom under your credential and Briggs's," I said. "Quarantine the node where I found it. Pull audit logs for the last 90 days and the hour after this brief made the schedule. And I need my workstation, untouched." "Done," he said. He didn't glance at anyone. Orders found their people on their own. The captains moved, faces pale with the realization that they were finally in the story.
Harlan tried one more time, going for humor that felt like rust. "Sir, with respect, she's grandstanding. She's been angling for a transfer since—" "Senior Chief," Ross said. "Say with respect again, and I will believe you respect nothing." Harlan shut his mouth so hard his molars probably wrote a memo. Briggs scrubbed the last of the hook into a jar file and sealed it like a live grenade. "If this is real," he said, "it's not one bad actor. It's a contractor with access, or someone above Al's pay grade." Ross's gaze slid to the D9 on the printout, then to the closed doors. The fluorescent hummed. The carrier groaned in a way that meant weather. "Protective supervision for Petty Officer Warren," he said. I was still E4 on paper. Titles catch up slow. "Harlan, removed from duty pending investigation." Harlan laughed, an ugly, wet sound. "On whose authority?" "Mine," Ross said, and the word reassembled the room. 2 masters-at-arms materialized like they'd been waiting just outside reality. Harlan's glare found me one last time, hot and stupid. Under the table, my thumb dug into the coin until "hold" might as well have been tattooed into skin. Ross looked back at me, something almost father-shaped moving under command. "You did the right thing at the wrong risk," he said. "That's usually how the right thing gets here on time." I nodded without trusting my mouth. My hands shook quietly against the fabric of my utilities, tiny tremors translating adrenaline into Morse. Still here, still here, still here. "Commander Briggs," Ross said. "Walker to SecOps. Then we go hunting." We moved. Behind us, phones vibrated into a pile of impotent glass, and Harlan's voice went small as the masters-at-arms put him where the ship could watch him. Ahead, the passageway smelled like Freon and steel, and that faint, clean fear that means you've finally told the truth in a place that can use it. I palmed the coin once more. Dad's voice,
Imagined.
Remembered clicked in the space behind my ear. Listened to the machine. The ship hummed. The code had told us where it hurt. We were finally speaking its language. The SecOps room was refrigerator cold and smelled like ozone and old coffee. Racks hummed in their lanes like obedient engines. A single analog clock ticked too loudly, as if offended by air-gapped time. Commander Briggs badged us in. The door sighed. The ship's broader noise dulled to a pressure in my ears. "Sit," he said. "Tell me where it started." I told it without adjectives. The checksums too perfect, the timestamps wearing the wrong watch, the 0230 blink of D9 like a tagger's smug initials. He typed fast, wrist bones making small, efficient shapes. Every so often he glanced at me instead of the screen, like he was measuring whether my voice held more truth than my data. It did not. They matched. Mini-turn. A SecOps petty officer hustled in, eyes wide, whispering in Briggs' ear. He paled a shade that didn't match a tan earned honestly. "Say that again," he ordered. "Warren's workstation just powered on," the petty officer said. "No user present. A wipe command attempted. It failed. Sandbox caught it." My stomach found the deck. Harlan was already in cuffs. Either his ghost was busy, or D9 had longer arms. "Cameras?" Briggs asked. "Two feeds grayed out," the petty officer said. "Then came back. Someone knows our haul angles." Briggs looked at me. "Your workstation image," he said. "We'll need your shadow process, too, the one you didn't tell your chief about." I didn't pretend innocence. "It's clean," I said. "Local only. I called it Rabbit. It burrows, not bites." "Then it earns a commendation," he muttered, pulling a fresh drive from a foil bag, the plastic crinkling like candy. "We'll build a forensics garden and see what grows." He slid the drive into a caddy with the same care you use for a newborn. The lab lights pinged to a brighter white. The fan under the bench ticked on, warm breath against my knees. "Who is D9?" I asked. "Handle that shows in 3 places I wish were myths," he said. "Legacy contractor suite, overseas mirror, and a training sim no longer on the syllabus." He rubbed a temple with a clean knuckle. "Whoever they are, they like to frame sailors who get curious." The room smelled like dust the AC couldn't catch. I rubbed the edge of Dad's coin with my thumb until Hold stood up and printed into my skin. "Listen to the machine," he used to say. The carrier groaned, a low, tired animal sound. Weather was turning. Briggs gestured to a stool. "Lieutenant?" "Petty officer," I corrected, out of reflex and a habit of keeping facts tidy. "Petty officer," he said, amended. "You're under protective supervision until we arrest the hands behind this. Eat something. Breathe. Give me access lists you trust and the ones you don't." I built 2 columns like a prayer. Names I would hand my passwords to in a fire. Names I wouldn't hand a stapler. The second list was longer. At the bottom, I wrote Harlan and drew a box around it. My handwriting looked like I felt. Functional, left-leaning, unpretty. Mini-turn. My phone vibrated, a number I didn't recognize, texting from a place I'd never been. "You're clever. Stop now." A second message followed before I could show Briggs. "Transfers can be permanent." The tone was bored, like someone ordering lunch. I slid the phone across. Briggs read, then looked up as if the ship had shifted course under us. "Keep it," he said. "Reply nothing. We'll ghost it." He passed the device to the petty officer, who slipped it into a Faraday bag with a soft plastic shush. A runner brought in a paper cup of coffee that tasted like pennies and a packet of crackers that tasted like cardboard with ambitions. I bit one anyway. The clock disciplined seconds into a queue. Down the passageway, dull footsteps echoed, then stopped.
Admiral Ross. He entered without the entourage that had seemed welded to him earlier.
Up close, I saw crow's feet not bought with laughter. The line stayed even when he wasn't speaking. He took in the room in a single pivot, racks like pews, Briggs at the altar of the console, me on a stool with crackery breath and a coin print on my palm. "We confirmed 4 more touch points," he said without preamble. "2 aboard, 2 ashore. All nested in contingency code. All with scrub marks that smell like D9. "Contractor?" Briggs asked. "Working theory," Ross said. "A firm with a Patriot's logo and a felon's ethics. Procurement section already sweating. I prefer my justice without PR." He set a folder on the bench, paper whispering like it didn't want to be part of this. Inside, emails, audit logs, a redacted memo with a header that made the air colder. Strike Group Comms Risk Assessment, Limited. A note paperclipped to the front in a tidy square hand I would later learn was Ross's. "Warren's lead. Follow it. I'm sorry about protocol," he added, and the apology wasn't performance. "Going around your chain is both why we're here and why you still have a ship. People who prefer quiet have learned to hate the sound of truth." Harlan's name scraped the room from the outside, muffled by bulkhead, a man arguing with gravity. Masters-at-Arms moved him past like a problem finally being walked out of a math class. I felt my shoulders drop an inch without permission. Mini-turn. The lab monitor jittered. A new process attempted to spawn under a harmless name. Update.exe.e. Briggs' fingers hit keys like a pianist stopping a bad song. "Nice try," he murmured, carving it into a sandbox and peeling it open. Inside, a packet aimed at my shadow tool. Rabbit. It wanted to smother it, then whisper goodbye to our logs. "They're in our house," Briggs said, "and they know our nicknames." He turned to Ross, voice too calm. "We need to quarantine the Truman's backbone and spin a parallel. Let comms ride the clone while we amputate the infected leg." "Make it so," Ross said, no theatrics. "To me, if you have anything on paper, it lives in this room now." I pulled the folded threat note from my pocket. He read it once, twice, face uninterested in that kind of theater. "We'll bag this too," he said. He paused, looking at the crease where my sweat had made the ink bloom a little. "Do you have anyone who needs a call? A mother, perhaps, who reads headlines as if they're weather warnings?" "My mom," I said, throat finding a softness I hadn't scheduled. "But not yet. Not until we have the thing turned into something that won't panic her." He nodded like a man who'd once made the wrong call too early. "Soon," he said, "with me on the line." Briggs's garden bloomed, process trees like skeletal flowers, PCAP captures like thin, veined leaves. We traced D9's path to a VPN exit at a contractor in Arlington with a patriotic name that tasted fake in the mouth. The phone number that had texted me resolved to a VoIP trunk rented by a shell. The shell belonged to a holding company with an address that turned out to be a mailbox store between a gym and a payday lender. "They want the fleet death," Briggs said, and the flatness of his voice made the sentence heavier, not lighter. "Or they want the ability to make it deaf when it suits a market move." Ross looked like a man who'd outlived 3 kinds of cynicism and hated discovering a 4th. "We briefed the SecNav in 90, he said, glancing at the clock. "Warren, you're coming, not to speak, to stand where I can say, credibly, that the sailor who found this is under my eye." My mouth opened, then shut. The room smelled like hot plastic now, racks working harder, fans pulling more air. I nodded. "Aye, sir." Mini-turn. The hatch banged.
A young MA stuck his head in, breathless. Senior Chief Harlan tried to access a junction box on the way to holding, he said. Had a tool he shouldn't.
What tool?
Briggs asked.
The MA held up a spudger, plastic, innocent. Its tip nicked metal. Looks like nothing, he said. It's everything, Briggs answered. Take him the long way. Keep him bored.
Ross looked at me, something cautious and human moving under the rank.
When this is over, he said, you'll have a file with more letters than you have shoulder space. But for the next hours, you will be very small and very safe. That's an order.
Yes, sir, I said. He half smiled, a broken thing trying to be a bridge.
My daughter was you,
he said, almost conversationally, except for the bone in it.
Different ship, same instinct. She came up through comms. She did the right thing at the wrong risk. We didn't have our hands fast enough.
He cleared his throat with surgical efficiency.
We have them now.
The room respected that more than it knew how to show. I pressed the coin until it hurt and felt steadier for the pain. Dad's imagined voice sat with me like it used to at broken kitchen tables, grease under his nails, coin rolling across knuckles. Listen to the machine. Fix the hurt. We walked to the SecNav brief down a passageway that smelled like fresh paint and old secrets. The ship rolled once, slow and deliberate, like a giant remembering it had a body. I matched my boots to its rhythm. The coin knocked my ring like a metronome. Keep, keep, keep. At the hatch, Ross paused.
Emma,
he said, my name fitting differently in his mouth than rank ever had.
You did not make this storm. You just pointed at the sky. Don't apologize for weather.
I nodded. He opened the door into a colder room with more flags and fewer smiles. I squared my shoulders to carry the quiet. The threat note lived in an evidence bag now. Dad's coin lived against my skin. And the machine we served had finally told us, in its own language, where it hurt. We were answering back. The SecNav conference room was colder than rank. The air tasted like tin and rehearsals. Flags stood at parade rest behind glass.
The carpet swallowed footsteps like a secret. I took the back left corner per Admiral Ross's nod, close enough to feel the hum of the wall rack, far enough to be furniture. Dad's coin pressed around into my palm. The imprint steadied my breath. The threat note lived in an evidence bag on the table, cloudy plastic crinkling when the light touched it. Proceed, SecNav said, voice clipped to the length of emergencies. Ross didn't throat clear. We have a sleeper routine embedded in emergency comms across the strike group. Self-masking, cascade shutoff on trigger. Origin scrubbed. Handle D9 appears at 4 touch points. 2 aboard, 2 ashore.
He slid Briggs's printouts forward. Toner smell lifted warm, plasticky.
Petty Officer Warren identified the anomaly and preserved evidence. We've quarantined nodes and built a parallel backbone.
Briggs keyed the air-gapped demo rig. The projector coughed and settled. A sanitized slice of code glowed on the screen. Call, hook, payload. Elegant and mean. He pointed with a capped pen.
This string mimics our checksum. Here's the obfuscation. A dead name routine. Safe path insulated. Behind it, the kill sequence.
A captain squinted.
Show me impact without touching the real net.
Briggs nodded.
Sandbox is live.
He typed the trigger phrase into a sealed window. The room's speakers clicked. A simulated net map bloomed, ships pulsing green, and then, in one polite wave, went gray. The projector fan sounded suddenly too loud. In my chest, something dropped and kept going.
Restore,
SecNav said. Briggs hit the dead man lever. Green came back, slow, chastened. Silence moved a chair. Harlan's absence scraped the edge of my thoughts like a hangnail. Where he was, he couldn't swing. I let my jaw loosen. The coin's engraved ridge, HOLD, printed into skin. Seknav's eyes cut to me. Why is she here? Ross. Because when people like her aren't in rooms like this break. He didn't wait for permission.
Protective supervision for Warren remains. Senior Chief Harlan is in custody after attempting to access a junction box. He is a conduit, not the architect. D9 likely ties to a Beltway contractor, patriotic logo, predatory ethics. We need warrants before they shred. A deputy counsel opened his mouth to say process. Seknav sliced the air. You have exigency. Briggs, coordinate with NCIS and DOJ Cyber now. Phones came out, then went into Faraday sleeves. Paper slid. The room smelled like sharp ink and decision. Mini turn. The demo rig jittered, just a hiccup, and a new process flashed in the corner. Auditprune.exe. Briggs caught it mid-bloom and knifed it into the sandbox. He peeled it open. The payload grinned back, log bleaching and breadcrumb planting. They're live on the mirror, he said, and they know we're in the room. Lock doors, Seknav said. No signals in or out. Bolts thumped. The air thickened, honest with fear. Ross's hand hovered over the table and found stillness on the threat note bag, an unconscious guard post. Warren, he said, turning to me like we were alone on a catwalk. The phrase, whisper it to the demo rig. Sir, I need to hear you say the thing you wouldn't say hot, he said, and there was a grief burr under command that I recognized from men who bury their daughters and build orders out of what's left. I stepped to the console. The keys were cool, shallow travel like cheap piano. I leaned in and said the phrase like a confession you don't want in air. The map dimmed again, gray sea, gray ships, a line of quiet so complete it felt physical. In my pocket, the coin knocked my ring. Hold. Enough, Seknav said, and I obeyed even though my mouth tasted like tin. Briggs restored, hands gentle, like waking a child from a bad dream. That's your probable cause, counsel whispered, already dialing in his head. Ross didn't look away from the code. Commander Briggs, draft warrants for the contractor's Arlington node, the VoIP provider, and the mailbox front. Simultaneous hits, 30 minutes. NCIS Cyber has point, Briggs said. Echo team to Arlington. Foxtrot to the VoIP host. Locals on standby. Seknav's jaw flexed. If a flag touches this, I'll wear it. Move. The hatch banged. 3 knocks, tempo of urgency. A master-at-arms leaned in, breathless. Sir, Harlan invoked counsel, but prior to that he said, you don't get it. D9 sits in systems above your pay grades. Ross's mouth thinned to steel. And you can tell D9 we're coming anyway. Mini-turn. My phone, sealed in its Faraday, vibrated against the table with a small, insect anger. Briggs slid the bag to me, eyebrow up. I nodded. He cracked the seal and held the screen where only we could see. New text, same VoIP trunk. Your next station will be silence. A second ping. Families don't like headlines. Something old and stubborn stood up in me. I looked at Seknav. Permission to answer? Negative, Briggs said, too fast. Ross didn't blink. You answer by still breathing at the end of this, he said. That's the only reply these people don't read. Seknav lifted a pen like a signal flare. Last question, he said, voice choosing weapons. If this had gone live in war, how many dead? Briggs. How many you can't count when friendly nets go black,
Ross. More than I'm willing to send letters for. The room absorbed that like a bruise accepts ice. Move, Seknav said again, softer and more dangerous. The room obeyed. Briggs packed the demo rig like an organ donor, cables coiled with reverence. Ross walked to me, one palm flat on the table so rank wouldn't be confused with closeness. Warren, he said, pitched for 2 sets of ears, mine and the ship's. From this moment, you don't walk alone. You don't take a phone that hasn't been cooked. You don't apologize for being right first. Yes, sir, I said, and felt the ship under my boots agree. He turned to the glass. Last time I missed the window, he said to his reflection, not to us. Not today. The bolt slid back. Cold air rushed in like news. We spilled into the corridor, paper, people, purpose, smelling of toner and adrenaline. Teams split at the T-junction. Voices clicked into radio cadence. Somewhere below, turbines roared a little louder, as if the Truman had decided to lean into speed. As Ross and Briggs ghosted me toward the lift, the coin warmed to my hand, the engraving now a steady sting. H-O-L-D. The threat note rode in evidence, small and ridiculous against the machine we'd exposed. Above deck, the sky went iron. The wind tasted of rain and electricity. Inside the ship, the new backbone carried traffic like a backup heart. We had found the hurt. We were cutting the rot. And whatever D9 thought of rank, character had just chosen the risk that turned rooms. The SecNav conference room was colder than rank. The air tasted like tin and rehearsals. Flags stood at parade rest behind glass. The carpet swallowed footsteps like a secret. I took the back left corner per Admiral Ross's nod, close enough to feel the hum of the wall rack, far enough to be furniture. Dad's coin pressed around into my palm. The imprint steadied my breath. The threat note lived in an evidence bag on the table, cloudy plastic crinkling when the light touched it. Proceed, SecNav said, voice clipped to the length of emergencies. Ross didn't throat clear. We have a sleeper routine embedded in emergency comms across the strike group. Self-masking, cascade shutoff on trigger. Origin scrubbed. Handle D9 appears at 4 touchpoints, to aboard, to ashore. He slid Briggs's printouts forward. Toner smell lifted warm, plasticky. Petty Officer Warren identified the anomaly and preserved evidence. We've quarantined nodes and built a parallel backbone. Briggs keyed the air-gapped demo rig. The projector coughed and settled. A sanitized slice of code glowed on the screen. Call, hook, payload. Elegant and mean. He pointed with a capped pen. This string mimics our checksum. Here's the obfuscation. A dead name routine, safe path legate. The kill sequence. A captain squinted. Show me impact without touching the real net. Briggs nodded. Sandbox is live. He typed the trigger phrase into a sealed window. The room's speakers clicked. A simulated net map bloomed, ships pulsing green, and then, in one polite wave, went gray. The projector fan sounded suddenly too loud. In my chest, something dropped and kept going. Restore, SecNav said. Briggs hit the dead man lever. Green came back, slow, chastened. Silence moved a chair. Harlan's absence scraped the edge of my thoughts like a hangnail. Where he was, he couldn't swing. I let my jaw loosen. The coin's engraved ridge, H-O-L-D, printed into skin. SecNav's eyes cut to me. Why is she here? Ross. Because when people like her aren't in rooms like this break. He didn't wait for permission. Protective supervision for Warren remains. Senior Chief Harlan is in custody after attempting to access a junction box. He is a conduit, not the architect. D9 likely ties to a beltway contractor.
Patriotic logo, predatory ethics. We need warrants before they shred. A deputy counsel opened his mouth to say process. Seknav sliced the air. You have exigency. Briggs, coordinate with NCIS and DOJ Cyber now. Phones came out, then went into Faraday sleeves. Paper slid. The room smelled like sharp ink and decision. Mini-turn. The demo rig jittered, just a hiccup, and a new process flashed in the corner. Auditprune.exe. Briggs caught it mid-bloom and knifed it into the sandbox. He peeled it open. The payload grinned back. Log bleaching and breadcrumb planting. They're live on the mirror, he said, and they know we're in the room. Lock doors, Seknav said. No signals in or out. Bolts thumped. The air thickened, honest with fear. Ross's hand hovered over the table and found stillness on the threat note bag, an unconscious guard post. Warren, he said,
turning to me like we were alone on a catwalk. The phrase. Whisper it to the demo rig. Sir, I need to hear you say the thing you wouldn't say hot, he said. And there was a grief burr under command that I recognized from men who bury their daughters and build orders out of what's left. I stepped to the console. The keys were cool, shallow travel like cheap piano. I leaned in and said the phrase like a confession you don't want in air. The map dimmed again. Gray sea, gray ships, a line of quiet so complete it felt physical. In my pocket, the coin knocked my ring. Hold. Enough, Seknav said, and I obeyed even though my mouth tasted like tin. Briggs restored, hands gentle, like waking a child from a bad dream. That's your probable cause, counsel whispered, already dialing in his head. Ross didn't look away from the code. Commander Briggs, draft warrants for the contractor's Arlington node, the VoIP provider, and the mailbox front. Simultaneous hits, 30 minutes. NCIS Cyber has point, Briggs said. Echo team to Arlington. Foxtrot to the VoIP host. Locals on standby. Seknav's jaw flexed. If a flag touches this, I'll wear it. Move. The hatch banged. 3 knocks, tempo of urgency. A master-at-arms leaned in, breathless. Sir, Harlan invoked counsel, but prior to that he said, you don't get it. D9 sits in systems above your pay grades. Ross's mouth thinned to steel. And you can tell D9 we're coming anyway. Mini-turn. My phone, sealed in its Faraday, vibrated against the table with a small, insect anger. Briggs slid the bag to me, eyebrow up. I nodded. He cracked the seal and held the screen where only we could see. New text, same VoIP trunk. Your next station will be silence. A second ping. Families don't like headlines. Something old and stubborn stood up in me. I looked at Seknav. Permission to answer? Negative, Briggs said, too fast. Ross didn't blink. You answer by still breathing at the end of this, he said. That's the only reply these people don't read. Seknav lifted a pen like a signal flare. Last question, he said, voice choosing weapons. If this had gone live in war, how many dead? Briggs. How many you can't count when friendly nets go black? Ross. More than I'm willing to send letters for. The room absorbed that like a bruise accepts ice. Move, Seknav said again, softer and more dangerous. The room obeyed. Briggs packed the demo rig like an organ donor, cables coiled with reverence. Ross walked to me, one palm flat on the table so rank wouldn't be confused with closeness. Warren, he said, pitched for 2 sets of ears, mine and the ship's. From this moment, you don't walk alone. You don't take a phone that hasn't been cooked. You don't apologize for being right first. Yes, sir. I said, and felt the ship under my boots agree. He turned to the glass. Last time I missed the window, he said to his reflection, not to us. Not today. The bolt slid back. Cold air rushed in like news. We spilled into the corridor, paper, people, purpose, smelling of toner and adrenaline. Teams split at the T-junction, voices clicked into radio cadence. Somewhere below, turbines roared a little louder, as if the Truman had decided to lean into speed. As Ross and Briggs ghosted me toward the lift, the coin warmed to my hand, the engraving now a steady sting. HOLD. The threat note wrote in evidence, small and ridiculous against the machine we'd exposed. Above deck, the sky went iron. The wind tasted of rain and electricity. Inside the ship, the new backbone carried traffic like a backup heart. We had found the hurt. We were cutting the rot. And whatever D9 thought of rank, character had just chosen the risk that turned rooms. They parked me in a windowless debrief room that smelled like recycled air, pencil shavings, and the inside of a pelican case. The analog clock ticked like it was filing. Commander Briggs took the head of the table. 2 NCIS agents sat flanking, pads open, pens waiting. I laid Dad's coin under my palm where I could feel the engraving carve steadiness into skin. Hold. Walk us through everything again, Briggs said. No poetry. Timestamps. I did. Check boxes too perfect. Timestamps in someone else's time zone. D9 blinking at 0230, the burner text, the attempt to smother Rabbit, Harlan's grab for the junction box. They drew lines, boxes, arrows, a paper machine that learned our language as we fed it. Mini-turn. The hatch cracked. Admiral Ross stepped in alone, sleeves rolled a half-inch like a man trying not to remember a hospital. He set a paper cup of coffee in front of me, black, bitter, hot, and a sealed envelope beside it. Protective transfer orders, he said. Temporary billet in fleet cyber protection, until this is over. I heard what he didn't say. And after, if you want. He didn't sit. He rested both hands on the back of the empty chair across from me, knuckles whitening just enough to make the scar show. Harlan is in pre-trial confinement, he said. Attempted tampering and dereliction, pending additional charges. He is not the architect. D9 remains live. James? Briggs asked. On target, Ross said. Arlington office already shredding, but DOJ arrived hungry. Voipost coughed logs we can use. The mailbox store clerk thinks she's in a movie. He exhaled through his nose. We'll see. He looked down at my hand on the coin. You're shaking. I'm vibrating, I said. Still here. He nodded as if that was the standard. Good. He hesitated, then added the thing he'd been carrying. My daughter, Hannah, was a comms tech. Different ship, same instinct. She flagged a spoofed firmware update before anyone with collar brass could spell it. We were slow. D9 adjacent, we think, but the trail was colder then. I'm not telling you because you owe me comfort. I'm telling you because you don't owe me performance. He swallowed like the room had gotten dry. Breathe. Let us swing. I did. The coffee steamed. The cup lid clicked as my thumb found the seam. The tick of the clock softened into a workable rhythm. NCIS slid a photo across. A contractor logo, eagle, shield, the whole parade, over an address that belonged to an empty suite. Shell, Briggs said. But shells can't sign purchase orders without a real hand. We'll peel. Am I safe? I asked, hating the child sound of it and letting it live anyway. As safe as we can make a truth speaker on a moving ship, Ross said. 2 MAs on you day and night. Phone only what I hand you.
If a stranger says your name like they own it, you walk the other way.
Another knock. An MA leaned in, voice pitched low. Sir, Harlan's counsel is here. He's talking. Says D9 was a log-on seen in procurement meetings. Higher than his pay grade, he passed envelopes and shut up.
Ross's jaw flexed. Let him talk. He bought his counsel. Now he can buy minutes.
To me,
None of this stains you.
the MA withdrew. The room breathed. I signed 3 statements. Ink smelled sharp, official. Briggs slid a Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal recommendation across, blank where the approval would go, like a small promissory note folded into war. Too early, I said.
Maybe,
He said.
we're learning to be early.
Mini-turn. My mom's name lit on a secure handset Briggs handed me, patched through the watch floor. Admiral Ross already on conference. Emma? Her voice was small and strong at once, like a rope you test twice. Are you okay? I'm okay, I said. Working. With good people. Ross cut in, gentle but command clean.
Ma'am, your daughter likely kept my fleet talking today. We will keep her safe while we finish this.
Silence. A soft sound I'd heard my whole life when she pressed a palm to her mouth. Thank you, she said. And then to me, the sentence I'd kept trying not to need. I'm proud of you. Something unclenched at the base of my skull. The coin warmed. I had to swallow twice before words came back with my own voice attached.
I did the right thing, I said. Even when it was loud. Even when no one was listening, she corrected kindly. Now they are. We hung up. The ship shifted under my feet, rolling like a slow nod. Briggs closed his notebook. Interview over. Escort to berthing. Then SecOps again at 2100. We keep pruning. As we stepped into the passageway, air cooler on my face, Ross slowed at the T. He didn't touch my shoulder. He didn't need to. You did the right thing, he said again, low, like a benediction that survived scrutiny. Not because I say so, because the machine says so. And now it will keep saying so. I'll keep listening, I said. The MA's boots thudded a rhythm I could live with. In my rack, the curtain held a little cocoon of detergent and dull metal. I tucked Dad's coin under the pillow, a small, cold moon. Someone down the berthing laughed too loud at a movie. Someone else shushed. I closed my eyes and heard the Truman breathe. Fans, ducts, ocean knocked into manners by steel. D9 was still out there. Harlan would stand in a courtroom and find out what inevitable felt like. Admiral Ross had put my name on a ledger no rank could fake. My hands still shook now and then, like a key thinking about turning. I let them. When the ship rolled again, the coin clicked under my cheek. It sounded like a tiny, stubborn metronome keeping time until morning. Hold, hold, hold. They pinned the achievement medal on my chest in a small room that smelled like starch, floor wax, and printer heat. No band, no speeches, just hands, a camera click, and Admiral Ross saying, "Well done, petty officer," in a voice that didn't need an audience. Metal cooled through fabric. My pulse learned its weight. Outside, the carrier exhaled diesel and salt, a living thing settling its shoulders. Orders followed, fresh toner, raised seal, my name spelled right. Fleet cyber protection, temporary billet, but already fitting like boots I'd broken in on a better road. Briggs shook my hand. The skin between his thumb and forefinger was ink-smudged. You'll build the watch you needed, he said. Start with kids who listen to machines.
I started the next morning. 4 chairs, 1 whiteboard, a rack humming like a choir that knew only one hymn. I laid Dad's coin on the table where it could see the work. Rank matters, I told the new techs.
catching the scent of burnt coffee and dry erase solvent. Character matters more. You'll be overlooked until the moment you aren't. Train for that moment. Train so the machine trusts you. Hands went up, pencils squeaked. I drew the shape of a checksum on the board, then the shape of a lie that looked like one. We walked the logs like a patrol, quiet feet, deliberate eyes. I gave them my rules. Touch nothing until you've watched it breathe. Print only what you can carry. Never be the only witness. Keep one thing on paper because paper can't be remotely wiped. I slid a threat note copy into a clear sleeve and let them see it for what it was. Sloppy courage from a coward. Fear writes like this, I said. You don't. Mom came to base the next week, jasmine lotion and old worry wrapped in a windbreaker. We hugged on the pier. The ropes creaked, gulls heckled the ocean. You look taller, she said, then laughed at herself. I know you're not. I stand different, I said. She nodded like a woman who had learned to read posture as prayer. When she saw the medal, her eyes filled and cleared, rain on good glass. I'm proud of you, she said again, soft as a seal. Harlan's court-martial moved the way courts move. Paper, dates, a judge with a patient hammer. D9 stayed a shadow with fingerprints. A server in Arlington emptied too late. A VoIP trunk that forgot to vanish clean. Consultants who discovered sudden vacations. We didn't get the theater. We got the quiet math of damage prevented and careers that would never hurt us again. On my last evening before the new watch cycle, I walked the sponson alone.
The sea smelled like iron and rain. The flight deck lights made a dotted path to nowhere and back. I thumbed the coin until hold rose against skin and lifted my face to the wind. Dad, I said, voice barely louder than air. I did the right thing. The ship took it, not as confession but as inventory. I wrote the program charter that night on heavy paper that rasped under the pen. Fleet Quiet Guard, Emma Warren, OIC, acting. Under it, the sentence I wanted stamped into every rack. Rank can be given. Character is proven. I taped a photocopy of the metal ribbon below and slid the page into a binder that smelled like plastic and new beginnings. Before lights out, I handed a junior tech, nervous shoulders, good eyes, a modest, worn coin I'd found in a ship store junk tray. Not Dad's. That one stays with me. This one was a token, blank on one side. Not for luck, I said. For listening. When the room forgets you, keep listening. He closed his fist around it like he'd caught a spark. Aye. The carrier rolled. The racks answered with their old tin chorus. I lay back, curtain drawn, metal cool on the shelf above my pillow, coin under it. The hum of servers bled through the bulkhead, a hive I could finally call by name. I breathed with it, the way mechanics breathe with machines when the fix holds. I had been overlooked. I had stayed. I had spoken. The fleet would keep talking because a nobody refused to be furniture. Morning would bring logs, coffee, and a room full of kids learning to be heard. For the first time since Norfolk, rent wasn't the thing I was paying. It was attention. And it was enough. If you believe women's courage and quiet tech heroism, keep the fleet safe. Subscribe for stories of honor, justice, and standing tall in the face of intimidation.